Well, this is part 2 of the show and tell for the planning department, coming and talking to this subcommittee. So telling you a little bit about the planning department. So I'll kind of give you an overview of who we are, what we do, and then talk about current efforts, goals, and accomplishments. So I thought this would be fun to include on the slide of who we are, because a lot of people get confused on what do planning departments do, right? So we have some fun images from well-known shows on there. Of course, Parks and Rec, probably the most well-known.
Who is the city's Ron Swanson? That's what I want to know.
Right? I'm not sure. We don't have one, which is maybe a good thing, right? So, and then, of course, Utopia and Portlandia. So we are not any of those. Obviously, there's little aspects of things we do with our public meetings that fall into some of those, but thought that was fun to show you. So here's kind of a little hierarchy chart of kind of how we're structured. So we have 7 team members. We have the planning technician is currently vacant. We're working on filling that right now. But as you can see kind of on the left side, the bulk of us are in that area with really the planning and zoning. And then underneath that, we have the 3 commissions. So we have our planning commission, we have our design review commission, and then our newest, our historic preservation commission.
I have a question on this.
Of course.
I appreciate this chart. This wasn't the planning department when you joined.
It was not, but I knew that it was the expectation to have the CDBG program come into the planning department.
Right. Well, I'm just thinking, so you have the CDGB, that is new. We were doing that, but it's now under you. And then the Historic Preservation Commission.
Is new, correct.
So your umbrella is getting larger.
We have broadened our scope.
Yes.
Yes, that is correct. So, and as you were talking about CDBG, so on the right side, we have that program. So our Community Development Block Grant, our funds that come in from HUD, from the federal government, and Chelsea manages the bulk of that, and I help oversee that. And we have Renata and her expertise from managing that program as well, which is great. So what do we do? And I wanted to include this map because this photo where people are kind of looking at the map. This is from last year's launch event for our Envision Coeur, which is our update to the comprehensive plan. And then it's the vision validation in collaboration with CdA 2030. And so one thing with this, I remember a couple years ago, Councilmember Miller came to my office and was asking, like, I have a friend that's trying to figure out what do you do? What does your planning department do? Do you guys just kind of look at maps and figure out where uses should go? And I was like, well, that'd be nice, but we rarely get to do that. But it's fun when we do get to do it about every 10 years, engaging the community to really look at where, how should we be growing as a community? Each time we do have development requests, you do look at the map and you kind of, the zoning, what's allowed. You look at our area of city impact and all those things, hillside, shoreline, but really getting to look at the city and how should we grow is a great aspect of what we do get to do occasionally. Here's another one that kind of shows you the outline of all the different services that we administer in the planning department, and wanted to really showcase the community engagement because that's a huge aspect of what we do. So that's kind of coming in from the 2 sides. A big bulk of it, the long range planning, I put in the middle. So that's what we're doing with the comprehensive plan. So looking to the future. How do we grow? What are our important priorities and action items for that? And then everything kind of circles that and is somewhat related, right, to kind of the future of our community. So I'll just kind of go around here clockwise. So special projects and economic development. So Atlas Waterfront is a great example of that. It's something that's been exciting for our department and other departments to work on, kind of looking at how do we grow and helping also stimulate some economic development with community partners there, same as East Sherman, revitalization. Development requests, that takes up a lot of our time. That's when someone comes forward with a request for, say, a zone change or a planned unit development or annexation, those types of things, we help process that. We take in the applications, work with the applicants, take it through the hearing process. Zoning code and subdivision code administration, that's something where we are tasked with making sure that the codes make sense and they're up to date. So sometimes we'll do housekeeping amendments, just kind of little cleanups here and there. Other times we'll do bigger things like, excuse me, the core housing code, right, where we're, taking a big section of the zoning code and kind of, retooling that with a lot of community input. So those are examples of that. Building permits, I put in here, we're not overseeing that, so the building department does, but my staff actually works a lot on building permits, looking at it from the planning and zoning scope. So residential setbacks, heights, things like that, parking, commercial, looking at all those important things. Historic preservation is a new one, as we talked about, and that's going to be great to kind of roll that in with our comprehensive plan as well and getting that historic preservation plan off the ground. And then the CDBG, the other newest addition to the department, kind of making sure we're administering those funds responsibly and assisting our low and moderate income residents. So some current efforts. So long-range planning, I talked about Envision Coeur d'Alene. And with this, so not only is it a management tool for growth, but it's also can be looked at as a strategic planning tool. So a lot of communities actually look at a comprehensive plan, not just for how should the community grow, but looking at priority action items. And then each year at budget time to kind of use that as a tool to kind of figure out how can we allocate funds? What are our community's priorities? So you're very well aware of this project, and we're doing well. We'll be engaging the council a couple times in January, and we slowed down the schedule based on some of your feedback and are trying to do a little bit more to bring everybody up to speed and get the right engagement and decision making that we need with the recommendations from our commission and advisory group. So just examples of how those documents are aligning. We'll be rolling in the comp plan with the different CDA 2030 documents as well. Here's just a slide showing kind of the community engagement, because this is key to this project, is really how much we've done through the partnership with CDA 2030 is to really make sure we're getting out and getting community input in the process. And so it's been really valuable to have our advisory committee and the focus groups, because they're really kind of a cross-section of our community members. And all of those meetings, all the online surveys, all the engagement, the mapping exercises, all of that's been great, as well as, of course, direction from council. So on the growth management side, what we do is we do work with KMPO as well to kind of help them figure out for their growth projections, where do we think growth is occurring? And so through our Envision Coeur d'Alene project, we're working with those numbers that KMPO has. So if you kind of look at the slide here for 2040, we're close to 85,000 is the projected for just the city of Coeur d'Alene. And so
30% growth?
Lots of growth, but that's over kind of the time frame you're looking at, so it's not, obviously. We're still about 2.5%, 3% in the city, so it's pretty reasonable, actually. But, looking at that, and then with our growth scenarios, working with MIG, they're helping us look at how do we, where do you place that growth? What are the options for that? And then working with all of our city departments as well.
Hilary, quick, I know this is other stuff. So we hear, we're not keeping up with growth. There's too many people coming here. The infrastructure doesn't support it. And yet those numbers, if we just look at what we have, we're not the big growers here.
We're not, no. In fact, we've been pretty steady. So some of our neighboring communities have been growing at a lot higher rates, as well as the county.
Which
but they're not actually out of line with the projections that were forecast previously.
So the projections really for us is we're pretty stable, but the impact people see is the traffic.
Right.
People come to Coeur d'Alene to shop and hang out and do all the cool things that we're known for. So it always catches me off when people are complaining about the people. Well, and I look at job opportunities and businesses surviving that back in the 80s they couldn't. Mm-hmm. So it's interesting to look at the projections, whether they're right or wrong. We're not even close, are we?
We're actually right on track. So I don't know. Yeah, this one does show. Okay, so actually it's showing probably we don't know what the census numbers yet, but it's probably right around there. So it's showing this is 56,494. We're thinking we're probably 55, so right in there. So it's not, but it is hard. It's hard for people to see change, right? And then of course, if there's traffic and all those impacts, it is a challenge.
We gave them a chance to fix the traffic and they said no.
I just threw this in there too. This is in the Inlander. So obviously this was a couple years ago. We're bracing for growth and we're one of the fastest growing areas and metro areas in the fastest growing state in the nation. But, this is going to continue this trend, and we're seeing more and more people move here, even in light of COVID, right? People want to get out of those more urban areas and realize they can work remotely. So talking about those zoning and subdivision code amendments, the core housing code is one we've had a lot of discussion on that recently. This is another one. So based on our last virtual community meeting, the community members and the neighborhood groups want more input. So we're going to slow this one down as well and do another workshop in January and slow this one down so that it's more in line with the comprehensive plan and the Envision Coeur d'Alene as well. So we'll make sure to get this one right.
So on that, I just want to ask a question.
Sure.
What are discussions out of planning when you say we're going to slow this one down so that it aligns with the comp plan? And we do have a comp plan deadline date, but the exponential increase in people moving here is occurring now. So we're pushing this off to make a plan, but what we're planning for is occurring right now in a larger way than what we had even anticipated. And I read a lot that it's because of COVID. What are your conversations surrounding that?
Well, it's always a balancing act, right? And so I think both projects were on track to be mirrored on the same schedule anyway. And so now it looks like, just based on more engagement with council on Envision, we're slowing that down, and based on this last meeting with the public, we don't want to go forward with a code that we propose that we have most of the community members either confused or opposing. So we want to kind of work through some of those issues. So we certainly could try and get this one ahead of the comprehensive plan, but we're still trying to get this done second quarter of this. So it's not great delays. It's just, I think it's really important to make sure that we do work with the community. And now even our historic preservation consultants have some great input on this code. So
we're getting more and
we just want to
more.
get it right. We're not trying to stall it. It's just kind of being sensitive to making sure that, when we bring it forward for council, you feel comfortable too approving something that you're not like, whoa, I don't.
But you're slowing it down for purposes of getting more information,
Correct.
solidifying what the plan is, more public input,
Yes,
not just. Okay.
exactly, not just to delay it. Correct. Yeah, to really work through the issues.
She'd like to get it off her plate eventually.
We would. We'd like to check some additional boxes.
Been there a while.
So special projects, already talked about Atlas. You're very familiar with that, as well as the conversations about the triangle piece and kind of just how the whole project works as a whole. This is moving forward really well, and it'll be fun to see some of the development in the first phase, so the residential and mixed use and multifamily going up in 2021. It's going to be great to see that. East Sherman, another example. So this revitalization plan has been kind of just sitting there. It was ready to bring forward to council, and then we realized we need to do a little more work with our streets and engineering and parks and rec and administration and others, just to kind of figure out some roadway design issues. How do we want to really have the streetscape work as that pilot project block? While it worked well in some ways, provided additional parking and places for parklets, it has some other challenges. So we'll be working on that. I'd really like to get this to you in 2021. So development, talked about this before. We do spend a lot of our time on all these items. Customer service is really at the center of what we do. So kind of talking about that community engagement, customer service is huge too. We get a ton of calls, emails. People are just asking questions. What can I do with my property? Or, looking at buying property, things like that. So that's really an important part of what we do. And then those development requests I talked about before. The customer service for us too is really working with the other departments as well. We really play well with others. It's important to us. We do our weekly development review team meetings, coordinate with others on that. And then, the building permits, already talked about that. So another tool that's online that's helpful for community members kind of looking at development requests is this map that Debbie Frisbee helped us create, where it shows active construction projects. So this is more commercial and multifamily. It's not, any little single family home, but this is on the city's website and it stays up to date. So you can kind of see, you can click on either the little highlighted area or you can click on, the description and it'll take you to the map. So that's nice, and it'll show you the kind of the overview of those projects. Talked about historic preservation, and we're excited to be working on this historic preservation plan. We have the funding, which is great, through our State Historic Preservation Office and National Park Service. We got a little delay in the first deadline, which is nice. So it's now May instead of January. We're still supposed to be submitting at the end of September, October. So we'll see if COVID delays any of that. But we'll be doing a public meeting in January on this as well. So we'll be sending out the information and a survey soon. And then CDBG. So we obviously have been doing this for a number of years. We first received our funds in 2007, and really helping our low and moderate income community members. And Woody's been a great part of that for a number of years too, looking at the affordable housing, public facility improvements, public services tends to be one of our biggest things. And then also we have the ability to help with economic development. This chart was from our CAPER, so kind of that year-end progress report. It's kind of showing the breakdown distribution of funds from 2008 to 2019. And here's some examples of our MRAP programs at the top. So the emergency minor home repair, do a lot of water abatement, furnaces, roofs, things like that. A lot of bathrooms, and now we're doing some helping people with connecting their sewer laterals, things like that. And then community opportunity grants. This is Lake City Center and their ADA restroom. So some goals. So a lot of our projects are kind of ongoing or multi-year just because they're so big. So We'll continue working on Atlas Waterfront. I imagine that's going to be a number of years. We'll get to work on that. Envision Coeur dAlene and the core housing that I talked about, 2021, looking at hopefully second quarter is really our goal to get both of those completed and adopted. Historic Preservation Plan, I already mentioned that timing. East Sherman, love to get that to you this coming year. Zoning code amendments, so based on Envision Coeur dAlene and also the East Sherman plan, those both have recommended changes to the zoning code. So we'll you follow up. Anytime you do a big project like that, then you look at the zoning code and make some tweaks. And then on CDBG, continue prioritizing the COVID funding to help respond to that. And then also we'd like to get an economic development goal in the mix before our 2022 timeframe. So accomplishments, so we did form that new commission last year, and thank you to Kiki for your efforts and support and assistance with that. So we formed the commission, became a certified local government community, and received a grant, kind of all within short order. So we have a consultant team that's helping us with the plan, and that is just kicking off. We streamlined our design review procedures, and that's been going well. Atlas Waterfront has stayed on track and is underway. Envision, Coeur dAlene, and core housing, we've delayed a little bit, but more just to have more engagement. Both projects we were able to keep on track even with COVID and all these changes everyone's had to make with the virtual format and things. And then CDBG had some great success with that. We received money we didn't expect with the COVID funds, and so Chelsea's doing a fantastic job managing her normal duties and then now taking in and helping manage the COVID funds, which is great. So doing that, we've done 4 community opportunity grants so far in 2020, the sidewalk project with our streets and engineering department, 8 COVID grants, actually that should be 9 now because now we have the Lake City Center one, funded 15 MRAP projects, and then this number also doesn't include the latest one, which is 20,000 or whatever for Lake City Center for that expanded Meals on Wheels. With that, I'll stand for any questions.
So you don't really have anything to do.
No, we're kind of bored. So, just kidding. We really enjoy all the projects. We're busy, very busy, but and we're looking forward to getting our new planning technician on board. So.
Excellent. So just as a looking forward with all the stuff you're doing, is next year going to be a big year? Because it looks like Envision's going to be
The first part
due.
will be, I think, and then it'll lessen up. So that'll let us work on some other things, which will be great.
Good. Thank you.
Yep.
So thank you for all you do. And I know that I am one council member who puts you through a lot. So I appreciate you always stepping up to that. I did read a thing in the paper the other day that the county is looking at some development zoning changes, like forming some sort of a separate coalition. And I'm not sure if I've got the details right here, but how does your department get involved with other entities like the county aside from KMPO that governs kind of what your planning decisions are?
Usually it's something that when we work with KMPO on like the growth projections that, excuse me, the county and the cities will all get together with KMPO and kind of talk through different things. In the past, we've met with the county and the cities too on area of city impact agreements, kind of how that will work, or kind of looking at, wouldn't it be nice if we could have continuous open space or trails in between the cities? Typically when someone's working on a code, we don't work with the other cities unless they ask for input. So, and we will share information. So we've invited other communities when we did our Envision Coeur dAlene launch, as well as core housing and the Missing Middle Housing Forum. We've invited the other communities to participate in that because I think a lot of the information is valuable to share. But if someone's truly writing a code and if it's just for their jurisdiction, they probably don't want our input. But if they ask for it, we absolutely will work with them on it.
If it's a county thing and it kind of applies in an overlay, do you get more
Well, the
involved
county
with county?
wouldn't, so they can't do planning for the city. So theirs would just be unincorporated county.
Okay,
Right.
but you're plugged in. Great.
We are plugged in. Yes,
Thank
we
you.
have great relationships with them.
And I'd like to say thank you for all you do. I know I come to you with all weird questions from the past, and you're always there. Also, the way you respond to folks that write emails, I think you're very diplomatic and you're always positive, and I think that's real important in this world because it's hard to understand some of this stuff, and you take the time to at least educate me when I have my strange questions,
Well, thank you.
We do thank you.
Appreciate it.